Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, welcome to the class. Last lecture we have discussed about liberalism and neoliberalism, that how these theories of international relations emerged and how they contested with realism and neorealism, especially after the Second World War. So the last century, that was the 20th century, it was mainly responsible for the debate, flourishment, and advancement in the theories of international relations. So was the case with liberalism and neoliberalism. Today, we'll discuss about interdependence and complex interdependence. And after that, we will move towards constructivism. So first, about the interdependence. Actually, the theory of interdependence and international relations, it is a branch of a further extension of liberalism, or you can say neoliberalism, right? Some scholars, no doubt, that they consider it as a separate theory of international relations, which is okay, correct, but some, they consider it as a part of, broadly, the part of liberalism. So what is the theory of interdependence, or what is the concept of interdependence, how it was emerged, and why there was a need for interdependence? As we have already discussed, that the decade of 1970s is very important in the domain of international relations theories, that many such debates, they emerged and they contested, they had competition with one another. Same is the case with interdependence. The concept of interdependence, actually, it was mainly consolidated, we can say, in the decade of 1970s, particularly when Joseph S. Nye and Robert O. Cohen, two Americans, the theoreticians, the professors of international politics and international relations, when they published their joint book, co-authored book, by the name of what?
International.
Power and Interdependence, World Politics and Transition. Okay? It was the name of the book, Power and Interdependence, colon, the second title, subtitle is World Politics and Transition. It was published in 1977. In this book, these authors have thrown light and have discussed the concept of interdependence in a more explained way. So you can also, you can guess about this concept from the title. What? Power and interdependence. It means that how much power is important in the era of interdependence. Second, how much interdependence it strengthens the concept of power. Third, whether power is important or not. What kind of power? All these things are explained by these scholars. I strongly suggest and recommend that you should study this book. I think we have in this library. Second, if you look to the subtitle of the book, that is World Politics and Transition. So it means that world was changing, the international politics was changing. That was the transformation, and it was a transitional stage, right? On the one hand, liberals and realists, they were having arguments with one another. But on the other hand, the rationalists and critical theorists, they have their own discussion with one another. So they were challenging each other domain, each other discussions and arguments based on epistemology, ontology, methodology, and the levels of analysis. So then what is interdependence? If I ask you people, what do you understand by the concept of interdependence and international relations? Hafiz.
Interdependence basically that we have a discussion about different theories, liberalism to the realism, and then as the name, as the word is, the concept is showing that the interdependencies mean the different system and different thoughts basically collectively or maybe the overlapping or depends on each other to define or explain the different phenomena of emerging in international relations.
Okay, Niyamat, or anybody who can explain it in a better way.
Uh, Sir, we know that the world is global, so all states needs to integrate with each other and to cooperate with each other, and because they are independent with each other, dependent on each other, either is economics, either is politics, either is geostrategic. So therefore, all state needs to cooperate with us either on the basis of free trade. Might be there is a behind the economics activity, there is a politics. So
ठीक है. Anybody else?
So, well, interdependence in international relations, as also mentioned by Robert Yohanan and Joseph Nye, that states and their fortunes are inextricably tied together. Therefore, they depend on each other for their demands and supply.
Good.
So,
हाँ. और कोई?
Yes, sir. In contemporary globalized world, sir, the term interdependence is frequently used, sir. Sir, it is a situation in the world politics where all the actors, including states as well as non-state actors, are dependent on one another. Sir, so the dependence means a state of being determined or significantly affected by external forces, sir. Sir, actually, it talks about the free trade and the removal of barriers to commerce. The removal of barriers of commerce is at the heart of the modern interdependency theory. So the conflict, it talks about that the conflict between the states can be reduced by creating a common interest in trade and economic collaboration among members of the same geographical regions.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It also talks about actually it was a challenge to the structural realism which focused on military economic capabilities to explain state behavior. So its focus was on the rise of international regimes and institutions, sir. And it emphasizes on the growing importance of international organization and multinational corporations, sir.
Okay, Hussein.
So the idea was that states thus satisfy their needs. States are interdependent in a way that raw material is produced in one country and value addition is done in another country, and then final, and even R&D is another country, but we get the final product. So the idea was that states satisfy each other's need. So, and it also curbs the threat of war between them.
Yes, actually, the interdependence, it is strongly connected with liberalism. More, it is connected with neoliberalism, and further to talk, it is amalgamated or it is pushed by the globalization. So we have seen and we have already discussed that the era in the post World War II, I mean the later 1940s and then the decade of 1950s, further the decade of 1960s, there were many advancements, right? Many advancements in international trade, in international organizations, in democracy, in the states' interaction with one another. And yes, if there were wars, but on the other hand, there were more steps towards peace, as there was nuclear non-proliferation treaty was signed, as there was the non-aligned movement name in 1961 it was established. I mean, not to take any side of the USSR, the socialist camp, or the United States and Western Europe, I mean the democratic or the capitalist camp. So these signs and indicators were there which were strongly cementing the idea of interdependence. And once there was an era when states, they were dependent on a state, I mean, and not necessarily that another state had to be dependent on the first state. So that era was called the era of dependency. Yes, there is also a dependency theory in international relations. It was also explained by Karl Marx. We can illustrate it within the domain of Marxism. But it was also explained by the realists that half state is dependent on another one, half a state exploits another state's resources. Actually, the theory of dependency, when there was a core and periphery relationship, it was mainly in the colonial era, in colonialism, right? So how the colonial power or colonizer, it exploited the resources of the colonized one, right? So then the colonized one was strongly dependent on the colonizer for what? Just to provide the raw materials, nothing else. I mean, there was no advancement, right? The colonizer had to keep the colonized or its colony within its own slavery, right? And yes, the colonizer was not dependent on the colonized one or on its colony. In a sense, what now states they are dependent with one another. I mean that it was only responsible uh, and it was only dependent there to exploit the resources and to have the extraction of resources from there. That's why it was called, the United India, today's Pakistan, Bangladesh, India. It was called as the Golden Sparrow, right? Soni ki chidiya kaha jata tha na, because UK, it extracted so many resources from there, and then it was used for the development in the UK. But now, okay, look, if now there is powerful state or weaker state, now if a state is bigger by population or smaller, now if a state is bigger by territory or smaller, if a state is American, European, African, Asian, Australian, or whatever, if a state is islandic state or a plain state, a part of the continent, if a state is prosperous or very much poor. So because of globalization, because of interaction, because of the connectedness among so many things, now we are living in the era of interdependence. I mean that unlike the previous era, or regardless of the status of a state, in every term, in population, in territory, in wealth, in science and technology, in advancement, in democracy, in socialism, and kingship, and the continental status, that this state is in that continent and that state is in another continent, regardless of anything. Now, every state, I mean states, they are dependent on one another because of the requirement of the age, requirement of this time. Further to explain, look, in the dependency era, a powerful state was dependent on a weaker state, just weaker state had to provide the raw materials. But now it is not the case. Yes, in some cases it is there, in some examples it is there, but not it is, I mean, the sole target of the today's debate in international relations. Now, even very, very much powerful state can be dependent on a very, very weaker state, right? And weaker state can also develop. Poor state can also develop. Smaller state can also develop. It is possible that powerful or richer or bigger state may develop more, but weaker, poorer, and smaller state can also develop. So this is, you can say, the beauty of interdependence. There are, of course, so many other demerits if we go in the discussion of globalization, that how there is now spread of diseases, the spread of spies, the spread of, viruses, even in computer, half computers they are hacked, half accounts they are hacked, the spread of nuclear weapons, the spread of traditional weapons, and so many, so many other things. This is also because of this interdependence. But on the other hand, because of this scientific age, because of more communications, and because of more openness, especially because of trade, international trade, it is the main driver. Now we are living in the age of interdependence. Got it? So far, if you have any question.
Sir, regarding this, sir, you have mentioned that after like when the new liberal ideas were emerged, and basically these slogans were taken from the Britain, like the Margaret Thatcher, and from United States of America, when the list was failed and they was not able to produce the peaceful world. So at that time, like interdependence theory or new liberal theories and ideas were emerged. But we have seen, like after that, that when the globalization was reached at the peak, free trade agreement was signed like SAFTA, NAFTA, and in the shape of form of European Union. But why such slogans are emerging from that nations, where such slogans was emerged like the free trade agreement, new liberal theories? We have seen in the form of Trump that he is banning the Muslim masses. We have seen the Europe. Britain was one of the founding members of such ideas, but we have seen in that Brexit again, Germany and other core states, they are banning the Muslims. They are withdrawing from those steps that were taken from them. Like they are banning free movements of goods, capitals, and masses, and they are reducing their
Okay,
tariffs.
okay. I
How
got
do you
it.
suggest, sir, the future of the new liberal order?
I think it's really a good question. That it is, what we can say, it is good fortune or it is very much misfortune that such ideas who are emerged from these states, and now these states are responsible to stop them, right? In the case of protectionism, or by the example of such strategies and policies of Donald Trump or the Brexit of UK. I think there are some 2-3 things through which we can explain this question. One is that possible what they had conceived about the globalization of, or about the interdependence. Now they have touched the level, or they have reached to that stage where now they are threatened, or where they feel scared about their economy, or about their identity, or about their maybe the political structure or politics. So now that's why they are having the reverse direction in their policies regarding globalization or interconnectedness or interdependence or international trade. Second thing, that it is also possible, because nothing is impossible in we can say in social sciences. Everybody has its own opinion and arguments to clarify or explain a phenomenon. So it is also possible that now they don't want, for example, to develop some other states who are poorer or who are smaller, that they want only to maintain their hegemony, because the level or the stage where they wanted to reach, they have already reached over there. Okay. Another thing, that is that they know that it is in their interest. I mean, interdependence or globalization is in their interest, but possible because of some, we can say, some crazy leaders like Donald Trump, right? That they don't understand the reality of time, and they have just, for their own political party or for their own personal interest or personal businesses, maybe, or to gain the sympathy and vote and support of the people. That's why they are taking such kind of steps to maintain their own power and just to, that is called rally around the flag, right? Rally around the flag concept. So just they want to keep their own people around themselves. So because of these things, and another one, the fourth one, we can say the fourth explanation, that is just like in the case of Brexit, that UK want to maintain its own legacy of power and prowess, right? Its colonial history, and after that, and its part and its contribution in the World War One and World War Two. So that's why it want to maintain its own pomp and show, its own pride, the historical legacy. So that's also possible that these states or these leaders, they take such kind of actions. No, the China's BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, before it was called OBOR, One Belt and One Road, right? Look to that step. This is also a kind of, interdependence, that even now China is dependent on smaller and poorer states of Asia and Africa, right? So through this BRI, some 70 countries, they are the direct participant in this BRI. And some 120 or 125 countries, they are in one way or the other, they are affected by this BRI. So we can say, if we take the example of this 120 countries, it means that almost, the two-thirds of the world China has covered through BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. So this is the interdependence. BRI is promoting interdependence, and yes, interdependence is also strengthening this BRI or the Xi Jinping's vision. And possible many scholars, they are also talk about that this China's economic drive, it will convert into political and also military drive in future. Then it can have a kind of, we can say, competition, more tough competition, a kind of rivalry with the United States or the existing superpower, I mean the United States of America. Okay, further, yes, please.
Sir, I have a question regarding interdependence theory. Sir, as we discussed that world is global and each state is integrate and cooperate with each other. So here arises the question that African countries are providing raw materials to the world largest states like USA and China, but the African countries themselves are deprived from the social amenities of the life. What are the causes behind this?
Okay. I think there is no single factor. If we consider that only the powerful states, they are responsible for the backwardness or the poverty of the African states, it's wrong. Yes, it can be one of the factors, but not the total. The main problem with African states, what I understand, that is their political instability, right? That they have not developed or established the political system or economic system in a way which can, which can be used for welfare of its own people. So that is the main thing. I mean, then of course there will be corruption. Of course, the money or the investment will not be in a good way, will not be in a proper place. So all these things are responsible. Mainly political instability of those countries. If they develop their political or economic system in a more proper way, then yes, in a more compatible way, then I think that they can also be developed in a good way.
So as you have mentioned that the China's the BRI may be converted in future up to the political and then the military. Then, don't we see this interdependency maybe in the future, even in existing time, the security independency as a whole of in the Europe extended deterrence, the concept of extended deterrence,
Yes.
American. So not only in a cooperation way, not in only in collaboration and organizational structure through development. I think so. The security dilemma is also there in as an interdependence. This theory
No
discusses
doubt,
about.
yes, no doubt. If we take it as a merit, then yes, security the collective security or to maintain security or to safeguard security. So best example is now European Union, the European states who are fighting with one another, who are the direct participant in the World War One or World War Two. So now how they are cooperating? They are very much friendly countries, and they have no such kind of security problem from each other. So on the one hand, if it is a merit, but on the other hand, this interdependence can also describe the demerit of this interaction of states with one another. I mean, through interdependence, there is also security dilemma from one another, right? Now, states they have to manage it, and I think that what states can do to establish international regimes, they have established, just like NPT, just as MTCR, just as Kyoto Protocol, just as CTBT, right? Like before SALT 1 and SALT 2, and then START 1, START 2, right?
BT, partial test ban.
Yes, PTBT, and so many other, but there is more need for it. So if international regimes are there, then interdependence will work more, and its merit in the case of security of states, the mutual security, it can be more, the more stronger. Okay, the further concept of this interdependence or extension, we can say that is the complex interdependence. What is complex interdependence? What do you understand?
The complex interdependence means that the weaker states, they actually in this, due to this interdependence with the powerful states, they get benefited. The other way, the one of the example in the other way around was that the China has given the loans to Sri Lanka, despite knowing that they can't repay. So in some of the cases, it happens that the weaker state they get benefited out of the powerful states.
John said.
So as the system is anarchic at international level, there is no hierarchy. So there is a complex sort of relation between the states. And so primarily there are three characteristics that can define the complex interdependence. Number one is the use of multiple channels of actions between societies in interstate, trans-governmental and transnational relations. Then the second point is the absence of a hierarchy of issues with changing agendas and linkages between issues prioritized. And this third one that characterizes complex interdependence is the objective of bringing about a decline in military force and pursuit power in international relations.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, this is the thing. Anybody else? Look, complex interdependence, let me tell you that it is not necessary if states they are dependent on one another. I mean, if there is establishment of interdependence of states with one another. Interdependence is established between or among the states, there can be complex interdependence. No. So it is not necessary. I mean, two or more than two states, they can be interdependent, but not necessarily in a relationship of complex interdependence. They are different. I mean, complex interdependence is interdependence, but every interdependence is not complex interdependence. For complex interdependence, what you told us, that is, there are three main conditions or characteristics or features. One, minor role of the armed forces, minor role of the military, minor role of the army. Okay, two or more than two states, they may be interconnected with one another. They are interdependent with one another, right? But if they have such, trust militarily and such trust and security terms upon each other that they consider that, okay, we can't fight, or there can be very much less and less possibility of conflict, military conflict with one another. It can be a complex interdependence. I mean, the minor role or of armed forces or the military. Second characteristic is the multiple level of channels among or between the states. What does it mean, multiple level of channels? Can you explain?
Different states are involved in one.
Uh-huh.
सर ये कह रहे हैं कि सर मल्टी चैनल्स के थ्रू लोगों को कनेक्ट किया जा सकता है, जो गवर्नमेंटल जो लिंक्स होते हैं या नॉन गवर्नमेंटल लिंक्स होते हैं, नेशनल ट्रांसनेशनल लिंक्स के थ्रू लोगों को कनेक्ट किया जा सकता है.
Sociological integration like that.
Yes, it is a part of this multiple levels of interaction.
सर आपने जो और कहा सर माइनर रोल ऑफ मिलिट्री, सर ये कह रहे हैं कि माइनर रोल ऑफ मिलिट्री इन द सेंस, ये कह रहा है कि जो इकोनॉमिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हैं या सोशल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हैं वो मिलिट्री के बगैर भी वो सॉर्ट आउट हो सकते हैं.
Yes.
जो भी इकोनॉमिक डिफरेंसेस
बिल्कुल
होंगे
बिल्कुल.
या सोशल
Leaders, I mean, not only government to government relationship, not only through the IGOs, intergovernmental organizations, but they can be connected through non-governmental organizations or INGOs, international non-governmental organizations. They can be connected through media. They can be connected through social media. They can be connected through businessmen, the business people, the traders. They can be connected through multinational corporations, through the social forums, through the forums of artists, through the forums of researchers. I mean, very much possible that there have very much people-to-people contact. So this is multiple levels of channels which can be established between two or more than two states, and it is a characteristics of complex interdependence. Acha, the third thing, no hierarchy in interaction, no agenda for hierarchy and interaction between or among the states, between the two states or among many states, more than two states. What does it mean? No hierarchy in relationship.
Like this connection or this integration should not be only on state to state level. Like peoples can be connected, non-governmental, as we mentioned, that non-governmental organization can be connected, like trade unions can be connected at multiple levels, not only the states. That this will be connection only on state level.
Very good. It means, look, if we look to the history of international relations, if we look to the relations of states with one another, history of relations of the states, mainly they were concerned about what? Mainly, historically, they were concerned about security.
Political.
I mean that they were connected militarily or they were connected politically. But now it is not the case in complex interdependence. So now security is not on the top priority if there is a complex relationship between the states. If complex interdependence is there between the states, then possible that security is not on the top priority. Possible that political interaction is not on the top priority. What? Possible that they have business on the top priority. Possible that they have scientific cooperation on the top priority. Possible that they have people-to-people contact just to visit, goodwill visits of people with one another. That can be on the top priority. Right? So then we can call it as a complex interdependence. Though these three conditions, what? Again, minor role of the military. Second, multiple levels of channels, and third, no hierarchy and relationship and interaction. Right? I have gone through a PhD thesis, and I can share with you in soft form. I think the man, he is Chinese, and he has done from the London School of Economics and Political Science. And he has done on the China and Australia relationship, especially in investment in the, I think, especially in the mining sector. And he has explained the entire thesis through complex interdependence. And he said that through such indicators, there is complex interdependence between China and Australia. I will share with you, inshallah. You have to read that, a very good thesis. I think he has done maybe in 2013 or 14 like this. Got it? So, complex interdependence is interdependence, but not necessarily that every interdependence we can call it as complex interdependence. No. So, complex interdependence, it is a more powerful stage, a more advanced stage of interdependence. Okay. Now, moving towards constructivism. First, to ask you people, what is constructivism? What do you understand the constructivist school of thought? Please.
So they say that significant aspects of international relations are historically and socially constructed, rather than inevitable consequences of human nature or other essential characteristics of world politics.
Very good. Okay. Aur koi?
Constructivism theory focused on realism, as discussed, security maximization and military maximization and war between among the states, and the same as it is liberalism discussed about free trade, corporations, integrity. They have discussed. So basically, this theory talks about that this all based on ideas and thoughts and perceptions, like that.
Good. Or?
So this constructivism is basically, I think, the intangible forces, like social forces, like we can say ideas, the knowledge, norms, values, the rules. They also influence the state behavior, and the identity of these norms and culture. They basically also shape the pattern of war and peace. So it means
Good.
that all the ideas, knowledge, which is normally in case of the realism, they are not considered as much. But in this case, in constructivism, the main focus is on these elements.
Good, very good.
It discusses about the intellectual development as the values and other things, and the social value, and then the internationalization, I think so, towards the globalization.
Sir, and also it goes a step backward. What realism and liberals they take as a given, like anarchy, they question the very concept of anarchy. They do not take it as a given and debate that how meanings are attached to certain concepts and ideas.
Good.
Because, like sir, he mentioned that it's totally believed that how you make it sense, like your beliefs, your ideas, your history, and human wisdom, how they take it and how they reshape the actual existence.
Yes.
So it also talks about that the nature of reality and nature of knowledge. They are epistemological and ontological.
What is epistemology and what is ontology?
Ontology is the existing things, origin, genesis of the anything, and epistemology is the interpretation of that things.
Like epistemology is derived from the nature, like we took something from nature and we
The state of being.
Yes, yes.
So, so there is also this saying that you do not believe the word you see the word you believe.
Wow. Again,
You do not believe the word you see, but you see the word you believe. So they reverse the the direction of.
good, good. You do not believe the world, but you believe the world what you see, right? Yes, you people are right, and everybody among you, you have mentioned it, some part of constructivism. Uh, Constructivism in 1980s, it is mentioned in this book. In 1980s, there was a debate. There were two debates emerged. One between the rationalists, I mean between the realists and liberals. They were opposing each other views. But on the other hand, there was another debate between the rationalists and the critical theorists, right? And that was about the ontology, epistemology, and methodology of the analysis given by these theories. So they opposed each other methodologically, ontologically, and epistemologically. Both liberalism and realism, they are rational theories, right? So they were also opposing one another, but on the other hand, the rationalist, I mean the positivist and the post-positivist theories like critical theories, they were also opposing each other. So constructivism, that is also a part of the post-positivist theories. Constructivism, it is a post-positivist theory. What is important in constructivism? You people are right. Ideas, literature, knowledge, identity, interest, friendship, enmity, structure. These things are important. Communication. Okay? And another, what John Zeb tell us about that the concepts, right, or the facts of international relations, these are not given by the nature. These are not as what we see them, but these are historically and politically, socially constructed. These are socially, politically constructed, historically constructed, and this is very much true. Further, that the phenomenon, any phenomenon or reality, any reality, what we call it as a reality, right? This is constructed one, right? This is constructed one, not given by the nature. Look, Canada is a neighbor of USA. Cuba is a neighbor of USA. But Canada and US, they are friendly. And Cuba and US, they are not friendly. They are rival. Most of the times, they remain rivals.
Yes.
Another, Canadian and US border, common border, it is considered as one of the most peaceful borders in the world. Lanka, it is very much lengthy. From here, if we give example from South Asia, India is Pakistan's neighbor, China is Pakistan's neighbor. We have not good relations with India, but we have very much good relations with China. Why? Both are our neighbors. Even we have better relations, more friendly relations with China than Afghanistan. Halanke, if we see, there are many similarity with us, culturally, historically, religiously, ethnically, lingually, by language, right?
History.
Everything is almost same with Afghanistan, but we have not very good relations with it. But on the other hand, China, so there are few similarities maybe, right? Very few, but we have very good relations. So what is there? Yes, something that matters. Something that matters. Maybe ideas, culture, identity, or the interest, or whatever, and how these things are made I mean construction matters. Construction matters. That is why Alexander Wendt, the biggest scholar we can say of constructivism, he has written a book of by what social
Theory of international
theory of international
politics.
politics. ठीक है? He called it as a social theory of IR. Social theory, because it discusses the society, discusses the individual. And what he says about anarchy. I ask you people, what he says about anarchy?
Anarchy is
There
actually the
is
state
anarchy, but
makes
it's cooperation.
makes it.
Good. Anarchy is what states make of it. Anarchy is what states make of it. Anarchy is there. Okay, if states consider that it is there. Anarchy is nowhere if states consider that it is not present.
Yes.
And what kind of anarchy is there? More, less, the strict one, the soft one, cooperative, not cooperative, or whatever. It depends on the concept and construction of the states, how they have made it. ठीक है? How they have made it. Look, two people or two countries, they are enemies. Why? Because they have made this enmity. Two people or two countries, they are friends. Why? Because they have made this friendship. So it means construction is there.
Construction.
ठीक है? Look, one, for example, we love somebody. Why? Because of some things, right? We love somebody. So there is construction. क्यों पॉसिबल है कि हम उनसे मुतासिर हों? ठीक है? बाज़ दफ़ा लोग कहते हैं यार बेला वजह फलां बंदा मुझे पसंद है, फलां लीडर मुझे पसंद है, ठीक है? हम मुतासिर होते हैं. तो दोज आर द आइडियाज. कुछ बंदों से हम नफरत करते हैं, कुछ लोगों से, कुछ ममालिक से, ठीक है? सो इसमें कंस्ट्रक्शन का जो है बड़ा रोल है, इमेजिनेशन का जो है बड़ा रोल है. सो दैट्स व्हाई कंस्ट्रक्टिविस्ट से that not only the material structures are important, but also not only the material structures are important, but also ideational structures are important. As much as material structures are important, so are ideational structures are important. बाज़ दफ़ा हम कहते हैं ना कि यार वो फलां बंदा, यार उसके पास जो भी आ जाए ना, कितना असलह क्यों ना हो, कितनी पावर क्यों ना आ जाए, कितना अथॉरिटी क्यों ना आ जाए, मुझे कोई ख़तरा नहीं है उसे, क्योंकि मुझे उस पर एतमाद है और मुझे कोई नुकसान नहीं पहुंचाएगा. तो वो क्या है, वो एतमाद क्या है? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, व्हाट इज दैट ट्रस्ट? दैट इज एन एन आइडिएशनल, एक आइडिया है ना, एक आइडिएशनल फैक्ट है. दैट इज एन आइडिएशनल फैक्ट. और आपको किसी बंदे से जिसके पास इंतहा की ताकत हो, इंतहा की अथॉरिटी हो, इंतहा की दौलत हो, लेकिन फिर भी आपको उससे कोई ख़तरा नहीं है, तो इट मीन्स कि द रिलेशनशिप what is there between you and that person, that relationship, I mean that structure is important.
Yes.
And that structure has given you and him as a what? Trust. वो structure ने आपको और आपके दोस्त को जो है वो trust दिया है. अच्छा, on the other hand, two people, they hate each other, there is enmity and they scared with from one another. ठीक है? शायद उस दूसरे बंदे के पास कुछ भी ना हो, लेकिन फिर भी बंदा खौफ खाता है उससे. Why? Because of the structure, because of the relationship. और उस रिलेशनशिप में वो स्ट्रक्चर इस तरह बनाया गया है कि जैसे आप एक दूसरे से जो है खतरा महसूस करते हैं. That's all. Same is the case with the states. States भी इसी तरह करती हैं. Look, in the Cold War era, most of the times there was enmity, rivalry, opposition of Pakistan and Russia with one another. But now Russian foreign minister is in Pakistan.
Yes.
Huh? Sergei Lavrov, he is in Pakistan. So it means that now that structure, what was there in the Cold War, given by the world, given by the competition between US and USSR, given by the competition between India and Pakistan, given by the closeness of Pakistan and China, so Pakistan and Russia, they were enemies with one another. Now, their structure is no more. Bipolarity is no more. So new structure has given new identity to the states, and that identity is now is converting among the states into what? Into friendship or maybe into enmity. So कल के जो दुश्मन हैं आज के दोस्त, कल के दोस्त जो हैं आज के दुश्मन, very much possible, not only with Pakistan but any other state in the world. So ये जो हैं कंस्ट्रक्टिविज्म, ये वो स्ट्रक्चर की भी बात करता है, ठीक है, और स्ट्रक्चर की इम्पोर्टेंस भी बात करता है कि वो जो है इम्पोर्टेंट हैं. ओके, नाउ critical theorists rejected the rationalist depiction of human as atomistic egoists and society as a strategic domain, proffering an alternative image of humans as socially embedded, communicatively constituted, and culturally empowered. Constructivists have used this alternative ontology to explain and interpret aspects of world politics that were anomalous to new realism and new liberalism. Yes, I mean, the human nature, what realists they depict, it is egoistic, it is self-centered, it has lust for power. I mean, all realists, they consider it given by nature, given by God. It is in the you know, जो इंसान की जिबिल्लत है कि इसमें ये चीज़ें मौजूद हैं कुदरती तौर पे, हालांकि इस तरह नहीं है. कंस्ट्रक्टिविस्ट दे से दैट नो ह्यूमन बीइंग जो है ये सोशली एम्बेडेड है, सोशली एम्बेडेड है, यानी माशरती समाजी तौर पे एक दूसरे से ये जुड़े हुए हैं. जिस समाज में आप रहते हैं उसी समाज के मुताबिक आपका कम बेश रवैया होगा, अक्सर लोगों का. शाज़ व नादिर कोई एक्सेप्शन हो सकता है, लेकिन लोगों का रवैया इस तरह होगा. पाकिस्तान में लोग एक तरह से बिहेव करेंगे या करते हैं, यूरोप और अमेरिका जाके फिर एक और तरह का बिहेव करेंगे. सोसाइटी इज डिफरेंट. अच्छा, सेकंड, कम्युनिकेटिवली कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड, वो एक दूसरे से ह्यूमंस कम्युनिकेट भी करते हैं. There is a constitutive communication among the individuals. Third, culturally empowered. ठीक है. अच्छा, this is also empowered that the rise of constructivism was prompted by 4 factors. Constructivism क्यों सामने आ गया, इसने क्यों अहमियत इख्तियार कर ली, इसमें 4 ऐसे अनासर शामिल हैं, फैक्टर्स शामिल हैं, जिसमें से फर्स्ट फैक्टर ये है. First, motivated by an attempt to reassert the preeminence of their own conceptions of history and world politics, leading rationalists challenged critical theorists to move beyond theoretical critique to the substantive analysis of international relations. While prominent critical theorists condemned the motives behind this challenge, constructivists saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate the heuristic power of non-rationalist perspectives. So first factor is what? Who prompted the rise of constructivism? That was to reassert the preeminence of their own conceptions of theory and world politics. कि कंस्ट्रक्टिविस्ट ये सोचते थे कि हम जो ये कह रहे हैं हम रियलिस्ट और लिबरल से बेहतर कह रहे हैं, तो अपने आर्गुमेंट को और अपने दलील को जो है ज़्यादा मजबूती से जो है दुनिया के सामने लाने के लिए उन्होंने कंस्ट्रक्टिविज्म पे लिखना और ज़्यादा शुरू किया. तो एक जो इनका हिस्ट्री का कंसेप्ट है कि ये हिस्टोरिकली ह्यूमन बीइंग एम्बेडेड है, हिस्टोरिकली इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स या रिलेशंस एम्बेडेड हैं, कंस्ट्रक्टेड है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड हैं, उसी चीज़ को और ज़्यादा प्री एमिनेंस में लाने के लिए इन्होंने और ज़्यादा लिखना शुरू किया. राइट, तो इनकी जो अपनी एक कंसेप्शन है अबाउट हिस्ट्री एंड वर्ल्ड पॉलिटिक्स, उसको और ज़्यादा मजबूत बनाने के लिए और तक़वियत देने के लिए जो है इन्होंने ये डिबेट शुरू की रेशनलिस्ट के साथ. So that was one of the factors. Second factor, the end of the Cold War undermined the explanatory pretensions of new realists and new liberals, neither of which had predicted nor could adequately comprehend the systemic transformations reshaping the global order. एंड ऑफ द कोल्ड वॉर, सर जंग का जो खात्मा है, जब मशरिक यूरोप में कम्युनिस्ट रिजीम्स का खात्मा होते हैं, वहाँ पे डेमोक्रेसी आती है. जब सोवियत यूनियन का बजाते खुद खात्मा होता है और एक सोवियत यूनियन से 15 ममालिक बनते हैं इंक्लूडिंग रशिया, तो इस जब बर्लिन वॉल को, दीवार बर्लिन को गिराया जाता है, इन चीज़ों ने जो है यानी सर जंग के खात्मे, एंड ऑफ द कोल्ड वॉर ने कंस्ट्रक्टिविज्म को और ज़्यादा मजबूत किया. वो क्यों? क्योंकि लिबरल्स और न्यू रियलिस्ट्स बोथ दोनों जो हैं, अक्सर उनमें से कोई भी ये नहीं सोच रहा था कि इस कोल्ड वॉर का खात्मा होगा. दोनों इसमें थे कि ये सेंचुरीज तक शायद ये चीज़ चलती रहे और ये बाइपोलरिटी कायम रहे. लेकिन जब यकदम ग्लासनोस्ट और पेरेस्ट्राइका सामने आ गया, मिखाइल गोर्बाचोव की पॉलिसीज आ गई, खासकर जब 85 से 91 तक का जो दौर है, ये सिर्फ इन 6 सालों में बाइपोलरिटी से यूनिपोलरिटी बन गई. तो कंस्ट्रक्टिविस्ट्स ने दोनों का और ज़्यादा आड़े हाथों लिया, जो उर्दू में कहते हैं ना, लिबरल्स को भी और रियलिस्ट को भी, कि आप दोनों गलत, और एक्सप्लेनेशन इज गुड, we can give better explanation. So that was the second factor which prompted the rise of constructivism. Third, by the beginning of 1990s, a new generation of young scholars had emerged who embraced many of the propositions of critical international theory, but who saw potential for innovation and conceptual elaboration and empirically informed theoretical development. सर जंग के खात्मे के बाद यानी 1990s की शुरू में 92, 93, 94, 95, इन 3-4 सालों में पूरी दुनिया में, खासकर अमेरिका में, कुछ इस तरह के लोग सामने आए, न्यू जनरेशन के, एक तो ऑलरेडी फेड अप हो चुके थे लिबरल्स और रियलिस्ट के एक्सप्लेनेशन से, और ये क्रिटिकल थ्योरी से ज़्यादा मुतासिर थे, क्रिटिकल थ्योरी से. ठीक है, तो इसलिए इन्होंने कहा कि नो, नाउ वी हैव टू वर्क फॉर इट, वी हैव टू वर्क फॉर बेटर एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस थ्रू theoretical paradigm. So that was the third factor. And fourth one, the advance of the new constructivist perspective was aided by the enthusiasm that mainstream scholars, frustrated by the analytical failings of the dominant rationalist theories, showed in embracing the new perspective, moving it from the margins to the mainstream of theoretical debate. Fourth factor ये था कि कंस्ट्रक्टिविज्म ने राइज करना शुरू किया कि इन लोगों ने अपने साथ और इस तरह के लोग मिला लिए, ठीक है, कि जो उनकी फेलिंग से, नाकामियों से, जो लिबरल्स और रियलिस्ट प्रिडिक्ट कर रहे थे और एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे, उनसे मायूस थे या उनकी प्रिडिक्शन से जो हैं मायूस हो गए, तो इनकी कैंप में, कंस्ट्रक्टिविस्ट की कैंप में आना शुरू हो गए. सो दैट वाज द फोर्थ फैक्टर, राइट. What are the 4 factors for the rise of constructivism? First, the reassertness of the constructivists about their own conceptions of history and world politics. Second, the end of the Cold War period. Third, new generation in the first days or years of the post-Cold War era. And fourth, that the advance of the new constructivist paradigm by challenging the mainstream IR theories and by coming into the constructivist camp, new people for new understanding and new explanation of international relations phenomena. Got it?
Yes.